Hey, I'm Jonathan, and I live in London, England.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and I live in Perth, Australia.
Together, we are Ekko and Sidetrack.
We produce music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between the giant space that separates us.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Short Order Burger Co. Use the code word EKKO for 10% off your order in-store on Hay Street and in Fremantle. This morning I did my first visit with a psychologist. I don't want to say my psychologist because she's not mine, but...
She is yours.
She's a psychologist.
She's a psychologist and she is yours. You can take ownership of her. How was that?
Really good. You do a test. I don't want to get into too many details, but you do a test before you start. That's like a little questionnaire.
Yeah.
And the question, like, it's just kind of like rapid, multiple choice kind of answer.
Is she asking and then you're telling? Or
no, they give you a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And the outcome was a bit worrying. And she was like, "Oh, you're definitely measuring on the lower side of things."
Oh.
The lower scale of things, which isn't particularly good. And it was funny. Well, it's not funny. It's interesting how quickly your brain answers questions that originally you think might take you a longer time to answer.
Your instinct knows.
Yeah. And it was kind of... insightful to a degree, but also extremely saddening.
Buddy.
Like, I found myself feeling pretty upset at the outcome, if I'm going to be completely honest. Actually. And that's probably why I'm in a bit of a shit mood today.
Buddy. But I'm really sorry to hear.
That's okay.
Being told something doesn't mean you are that thing, though. That's just you're being notified of their scale.
Yeah, it is. And that's good. But I think it's also like, it's not so much the scale of things or like being told something. I think really it's just sitting down with someone you don't know and being like, "Oh, this is how I feel."
That's a big deal.
And them
it's
being
a positive step.
Yeah, it's super positive. And that's, I guess I did want to talk about like going to talk to someone and how healthy that is. But it's, I don't know, it's like saying, I always think talking to someone about how you feel, especially someone that doesn't have any vested interest in how you feel, makes you you're not kind of shielding anything. You're not protecting anyone. You're not like, I don't want to bother this person. I don't want to. To me, there's no filter. And so some of the things I say, or some of the things I'm thinking, and all she's doing is like asking questions. And it's all about coming to your own realizations. And some of them are just like, it's just sad. It's a sad thing to do, but a healthy thing and like a good energy release and a good way to get things out of your head. But I wasn't surprised, but I was definitely a little taken aback about how poorly I felt about things.
Yeah, like when asked
When asked straight, it's like someone saying, "How are you doing?" And most of the time, everyone's like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then when someone says on a piece of paper in black and white, like, when was the last time you felt enthusiastic about something? And my answer was like the zero, like the furthest one. Like when was the last time you felt like, no, it wasn't enthusiasm. It was like, fuck, I can't even remember now.
Are you sure you want to talk about stuff on the podcast?
Yeah, that's fine. It wasn't excitement. It was like, maybe it was enthusiasm. Maybe it was enthusiasm. When did you feel enthusiastic about something? And it was zero.
So, okay.
And this isn't like, it's how you're feeling most of the time.
Yeah.
And I talked about it afterwards. I talked about the Reunited show, and I talked about what we've been doing when I've gotten back. And I feel like we've been really productive and really good. And I feel music has been going so well for us since coming back.
Yeah.
Finished songs. We've got good opportunities. Positive things are happening.
Yeah, it's great.
On all that aside, and doing the show felt good, and I was enthusiastic about the show, and I explained that to her. But then day-to-day stuff is just so, like, low. Super low. And seeing that and having her go, well, your answers were here and here for a couple of them was just... That in itself is depressing.
Yeah. I suppose what I wanted to ask is, like, if you feel like you're unenthused, I'm not sure what the terminology was, but, like, so if you can speak to that a little bit more, like, what do you feel when you are behaving in an enthusiastic manner? Does it feel like a bit of a show, or does it feel like you're like, I'm enthusiastic in this moment, but it's a fleeting?
I'm enthusiastic in this moment. It's all about being in the moment. So I can be enthusiastic when we're playing, or when we're in a zone, in the studio, when we're laughing, or doing something that I'm in the moment. And we talked about this, like, when I'm in the moment, I feel good. But when I'm not, I don't. And I'm lost in thought, or I'm out of it. I'm out of the moment.
And do you think you drift into the future or the past?
Both. I think right now it's the past, mostly. I think there's a bit of, there's a sense, I think, of loss that I'm feeling at the moment. And we talked about this as well, like how people can feel it that way sometimes after moving away and coming back home and that type of thing. And I think I feel a sense of loss in terms of myself a bit. Like I had a part, like there was me in London and then me here, and the two are slightly different, and I'm a bit misaligned with those at the moment.
I think the two are very different, and, like, it's almost like you've regressed a little bit into who you were a little bit before you went away, which is someone who, had different things on his mind.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that there's been a couple of things that have happened that have made me really feel that regression and that sadness. But I mean, I wasn't feeling great at the beginning of the year. We talked about it on the podcast.
Or last year. I don't think you felt great since February last year.
No, February, that was fine.
No, that's what I mean. February last year was the last time you felt great.
Oh, no. I felt great in summer. I think the real dead decline was in like November, December. And then I got picked back up in January, but then it still wasn't amazing. And I think now it's coming back here, and some things that have happened in the past couple of weeks have exacerbated a problem and have increased that problem. Not increased the problem, sorry, have brought issues to the surface that before could be tapered with things, or could be dismissed, or not dealt with in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think I think I'm now at a point where it's like bubbling out of me. Something is bubbling out of me like it's just been pushed to a certain degree and is now forcing its way out. And I think the discussion today was a little alleviation of pressure. But what I wanted to discuss was how important discussing that kind of stuff is. I mean, we talk about mental health all the time, but discussing that stuff with a professional or with someone that's just listening without trying to fix you, or without trying to offer assistance, or without listening with years of baggage or years of bullshit, how you might listen to a family member or a partner or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, going to someone that just you can talk out, essentially, and they pry things out of you, and how much of a little pressure valve that is opening of a potential decompression chamber that is just growing and growing in pressure. And I really think those valves are really important, because if you don't alleviate some of that pressure, something happens and a little hole gets made in that capsule and the fucking thing explodes. And that's how people have psychotic breaks, or that's how people go crazy or respond really erratically to things, or that type of stuff.
And yeah, consequently can learn to compartmentalize because they don't deal with things, and or like just be like, oh, I react really badly to X when X happens because I just don't deal with that.
Yeah,
and you can get away with like doing that. It's like it becomes a coping mechanism.
You can, and I think you can do that, but I think that's probably not how my brain works. And yeah, it felt good to talk to someone about it.
That's great.
So I advise anyone out there that's going through something, or thinking things, or feeling things, to go talk to someone.
Yeah, it's something I'd definitely consider doing. I think if I think about it, I'm like, I'm fucking too busy for that shit. Like, I don't have time for this shit. Like, I barely got time to go to the dentist or the chiropractor. Like, especially when I'm busy, I find it quite frustrating that I have other shit to do when I've got other things to do. Like, I've got bigger pressing things to do. And so, but what happens if you don't do anything about it? It's like someone who chooses not to go to the dentist for 10 years and then goes, finally I'm going to crack, and because you didn't want to give up the time in those 10 years. And then guess what? You're going to have to go 10 times in the next 2 years because you didn't want to give up that time.
I think there's also another deeper connection to how you feel about yourself when it comes to some of these things. Like, you know, going to the doctor or talking about mental health or doing exercise or doing something that's going to benefit you in the long run is resistance to do those things for any reason, whether it's you think you're too busy or whatever it is, it's almost like this, what you're saying is, I'm not worth taking 10 minutes to do this thing. But, before we started the podcast, we were briefly talking about meditation. And you said you had a good meditation practice and it went out the door. My meditation practice at the moment is dog shit. Like I'm literally doing it just before I go to bed occasionally to help me get to sleep. And maybe once a week I'll do it.
I find it helps at the start of the day.
Yeah, it does. It massively. It helps so much. But it's so hard to find that 10 minutes. But it's easy to take 3.5 hours looking at your phone or getting lost on something else. Like, I think you yearn for distraction. You can distract yourself by avoiding the things that you have to do. And it's funny, there's been a couple of things that I've avoided to do this week that I've done, and it's alleviated so much pressure. Again, it's like, oh, okay, cool, I can sort that thing out. And it's mad how your brain tells yourself that dealing with something isn't going to make you feel better. And you will. That's it's the voice you hear when you wake up and you've got to go to the gym, and the voice is like, don't go to the gym. That's not going to help you. You're not going to feel better. Stay in bed. Look at Instagram. Come on, that hot chick posted something. Like that. That voice is never correct. And it comes in so many different forms.
The form I get it in a lot recently is if I've got to do a few things before I'm going to be able to do the thing I want to do or come to the studio, I'll think of 3 or 4 different ways to do the things that I've got to do to try and be the most productive. Like this morning, I knew I had to get some coffee to a cafe, and I had to get to the studio. But then I was like, I'm going to gym in the morning because I didn't get there for very long. I didn't go on Tuesday. I'm going to do it. I woke up a bit later. I was a bit tired. Struggled to get out of the house a bit. And that, for the last 10 minutes of getting out of the house, I was sitting there going, maybe I could go to the gym this afternoon. Maybe I could, can I get the coffee, then come back, then go to the gym? Is that a better idea? Should I do it like this? Could I do the coffee tomorrow morning on the way to work, but I'll get it on the thing? And it's like my brain was trying to get out of it for me, when really I just had to go I'm going to do this. Now I've squandered 15 minutes.
Which is the time that you were trying to save by...
Exactly. And I ended up going to the gym for 45 minutes and worked out a 45-minute routine. I still didn't feel that great. I didn't get the full-on buzz. I'm fucking tired. That pissed me off. Then I ate something, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the studio. I'm still running. And then I'm like, no, I've got to do that thing. Fuck, well, maybe I could. I'm like, no, maybe it's about it. I had a bit more focus, so I just went and did the thing. And it took me an hour, but it was to correct a mistake that I'd made on Tuesday, which, again, pissed me off. What was great is that I was able to get a park close to the cafe. When I pulled up at the cafe, they were super busy, and the guy was like, man, I can chuck a toasted sandwich in for you. You want one? And I'm like, oh, that'd be amazing. It was really helpful. It was great. And I listened to an interesting podcast on the way. But I still turned up here being like, I should have been here 2 hours ago. Going to the gym was a fucking waste of time. I didn't feel that much better. I should have done, all this stuff. And the whole day I've just been thinking on that, ruminating on that energy. And part of it is I started the day on the wrong foot because I was fucking tired. I just needed a little bit more sleep, or I needed to have gone to the gym on Tuesday so that I didn't feel like I obligated to do it today, or I should have just let it go and done it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then I think to myself, that's a good thing you went today. You got it done. And through all the spite and the frustration that I feel, I did the things I had to do. I'm here in the fucking studio. We're getting on with things. And so why can't I feel good about it? Because I still got a little bit of frustration of the momentum that carried me here.
So
It's like you're on the island. And I'm like, yeah, but look at the shitty boat that I got here in.
yeah,
So you fuck off. You're on the island. Just let that go and enjoy the island.
but it's so hard to let go of some of that stuff. Like one of the things we talked about today was, I know that moving back here was the best move. It means that our career will move forward much more. The opportunities we've got, like, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Logically. But illogically, which is what emotions are, it's really fucking with me.
I could tell it was really fucking with you because of the way you said I asked you about the other day, like June 21st in the UK, and you're like, June 21st is going to be that day. It's going to be the big celebration of end of COVID.
The end of fucking Star Wars party.
Yeah, the Ewoks are going to be there. Chewbacca's going to fucking offer rides.
Yeah. But it, like that, I think acceptance. I think this is sounds like what we both need to do. With your kind of shitty morning, shitty day start, and me with...
But it had so many great points as well, which is the crazy thing. Why can't I put the fucking good in front of the bad? It's like I'm holding on to this thing.
Exactly. But like it's accepting that something didn't go your way at some point. But then, you know, the fact that you got a fucking toasted sandwich, a surprise toasted sandwich that you weren't expecting.
A celebrity guest in the car.
That's a fucking huge, that's a great
It's a win.
day.
Yeah.
Someone might go home and tell their wife that that's what happened.
I got a free sandwich today.
Yeah. But still, it's that fixation on what didn't go right. And I do think we do that often. I mean, we not as much as we maybe used to, but I think when we're tired and when we're a bit stressed, we do that a lot. And I mean, at the moment I'm finding it quite hard to let go of some stuff, you know. There's no amount of wishing and no amount of thinking is gonna get you back to 7:00 this morning where you went to the gym earlier, or last night when you could have gone to bed earlier, or...
And there's also something to be said for, like, when you gain something, you often lose something else.
Absolutely.
And learning what you're gaining is a positive, and like moving forward with that rather than lamenting the fact that you lost the other thing, to bring it back to me, like something I've had to deal with a lot in my life is the frustration of choosing, or the frustration of not having and wanting and not getting, or just like the anger of like patience. Patience is something I have to work on. And the concept of letting something go and letting it be is difficult. I'm not a professional fucking basketballer that can miss a shot and then step back and be like, what shot? And just straight back to focus. But I want to get to that fucking point.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what's required. That's like an animal just like shakes off being attacked by a tiger. You know how they shake around after they've been chased and they get away? They shake it off and they get back to it. They're not sitting there being like, oh my gosh, that tiger traumatized me. They like get rid of it. I'd love to be able to have that. One of the reasons I got my fucking arm tattooed with this phrase, just let it go, is a constant fucking reminder to behave like that, to bring that into my life. So I can go like, yeah, that's what I have to do. Don't allow this thing to take control of you. Just let it go. It's a lovely little phrase to say, and it's something I really believe is very, very important.
Yeah.
But something I still struggle with. And it's something that can, like, at the biggest times I can do it, and at the small times sometimes I can't, and vice versa. Like, it does, there is no, it's not like, oh, I can all the little stuff I can let go of is when it ticks over a 5 that I struggle with. No, it can be small things, big things, and at times of stress, like you said, is when it's critical, because that's when you will most likely slip up, because everything else is at the potentially the lowest, like kind of, what's the word? Like other factors are at their low point. So sometimes your ability to read how you're feeling and everything else is going to be harder. But so you're more likely to make mistakes or, be mean to yourself and stuff. But they're the times when you have to be kindest, because that's when the rope is the slipperiest and the skinniest, and that's when you're most likely to fall.
And that's what all the training is supposed to lead up to. It's you write a journal when you're in the good mood.
Yes.
So when you're in the bad mood, it's helpful.
Yeah.
You do your meditation when you're feeling good.
Or bad.
Yeah. No matter when. So when it's really bad, you don't have moments where you're like, fuck, I should meditate more. It's
practice.
Breathe and practice and
let
relax.
it go.
And they don't fall, and things don't fall by the wayside.
And let it go. And like, it's okay. Like, we're doing, constant reminder to myself is that I'm doing enough, and I am enough, and I'm doing more than I ever have, and I am achieving more than I ever have.
That voice in my head is very quiet at the moment. And it's always, I don't know about anyone else, but I always struggle between the voice that I think of as my higher self, which is, you are enough, you're doing it, it's all fine, very loving. And then probably the ego or the swamp Jono. Who's like, you're not enough, you're a piece of shit, this was wrong, saying all these things that are kind of louder or softer in my head. And I do think practices like meditation and exercise and mindfulness and journaling and more sleep and exercise, all those things we talk about mean it gives more airtime to higher Jono.
What can I ask? I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail, but like, what is Swamp Jono trying to get you to, like, what's the outcome he's looking for? Is he looking for you to be like, oh, I am a piece of shit, and then Swamp Jono goes, yeah, I'm fucking winning, and then you become Swamp Jono?
No, Swamp Jono doesn't have a goal. Well, his goal is to keep me in the swamp because that's where he thrives. That's all. He exists because I'm in the swamp. If I leave the swamp, he starts to lose power. And he ultimately wants to have power and exist. The funny thing with higher self Jono, is that he exists no matter what. He doesn't need to be in the tree or out in the fucking fresh lake or in the meadow. He's there now. All he says is like, come and play with me. That's all he's saying.
Whether you're neck deep or like ankle
whether you're
deep
in the swamp or whether you're out of the swamp, I'm going to be here no matter what.
Yeah, that's important.
And I kind of feel like that's probably what people think about when they talk about God and like the love of God.
That unconditional.
The unconditional love coming from yourself.
Yeah.
That's always there.
It's the love of a higher power.
It's the love of the higher power. But I don't particularly think it's God. I think it's just higher Jono. Being like, hey buddy, like it's all good. You're doing good. You're having fun. You're doing this. You're doing whatever. And then Swamp Jono pulls out his tentacles and is like, no, don't go over there.
And so therefore,
I'm back here.
Therefore, it becomes a belief thing, because if you can hear both the voices, it's which one you believe.
And I think that's when circumstances change which one you believe. Because there are days where I just got to the chapter in
Ryan Holiday's Stillness is the Key.
Stillness is the Key, where they're talking about how imposter syndrome is the opposite of, I think, arrogance when it comes to the ego. So both come from the ego. And I think that it's just when you're feeling down, which everyone does. Everyone feels sad. Everyone feels happy. I think when you're feeling sad or upset about something, that's when your defense shield is slightly weakened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the little negative swamp man can incept a little idea. It's like, you did fuck that thing up. Do you remember when you fucked that thing up in year 10 as well? Because you did the same thing now. You haven't learned anything for 15 years, and then the next day, probably again because you wake up a bit tired and you forget to do something, and someone's a bit pissed off at you, and it's like, man, fucking come on. And then you're like, yeah, I fucked that up again, just like I fucked up the thing yesterday, and just like I fucked up the thing when I was in year 10, I am a fuck up. And then the shield goes completely down, and Swamp Monster just embeds himself in your fucking mind. And I think when you don't have enough positive input or positive belief, that's when you kind of get overrun. That's why we've talked about it before. Self-affirmation.
Yeah, it really helps.
It's not what I'm doing right now, but I need to start doing it.
Does reassurance from other people help you?
Yes, but not really. Reassurance is lovely. And of course, I know, no amount of people telling me that I'm not a piece of shit. Again.
I don't mean from that perspective. I mean, sometimes I will, countless times while you're away, we'd have like, for lack of a better expression, like kind of a pep talk. And I'd be like, things are going okay. Like, this is a setback. This is okay. And we had one fairly major one at the start of the year. Do you remember after you decided that you were going to come home?
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm glad you've made this decision. Let's think about what we're going to achieve a little bit, like not a plan, but just like I was reassuring you that we're on the right track and we're doing something good, and you coming home is going to be okay. It's a little bit sad that you're leaving the thing in the UK, but what we're going to build here is really important, and it's just a different way to get where we're going.
But again,
you were really stressed. You remember you were coming home from work, you were on the bus.
All that is logical. So again, like, reassurance is logical. And I am logical to a degree. So there's obviously a part of me that's like, yes, of course, but of course.
Yeah.
And that's like why I think I'm not completely consumed. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are when there's no positive input or things are really going fucking catastrophically. I'm hugely aware that my issues aren't.
Oh, you don't have to diminish your issues.
No, not diminishing my issues, but I'm aware that it's not like, a huge. It's not as bad as it could be. Basically, was what I'm saying, and I can logic my way out of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't help sometimes.
But I'm also too emotional to do that, and emotions are a lot hard to traverse. It's like, especially when they're not dealt with, and I think that's probably what's kind of been happening. I've been brushing aside things and haven't been dealing with them like I'd need to. But it's no amount of like, I love you from someone, even though if they truly love you, can make you feel better sometimes. You know, like even if you're feeling like it helps, obviously it helps in a moment, but that doesn't change how the swamp monster feels, that's not enough.
You're pouring love into a cup that has a hole in the bottom, and it's up for the person to plug the hole for any of the love, their love, self-love, anything to kind of stick.
Yeah.
And the hole in the bottom of the cup is all of the negative stories and everything we tell ourselves.
Yeah. And I think there's, I think everyone tells themselves negative stories, and everyone feels those things. And I think people are better at traversing them than others because of practices, because of historical things that they can base on in their own life. But man, sometimes, even though I've dealt with things in my life that I'm like, I remind myself like, I remember you did that thing, so this should be easy. I still doesn't feel like I still feel like I'm a novice at the thing, at the emotional thing, no matter how many times this happens or that happens, it's just like kind of the same emotional response.
I think some of that probably comes from moments where, well, I'll speak for myself. That feeling comes from moments where I haven't put in the work in the past, and I have scraped by on doing something else, and I've had to come up with a solution. And I'm like, whew, got away from that one. Then it happens again, and you're like, I'm kind of out of my depth. And then you go, you're a fucking idiot. You had the chance to learn this. Did you literally not know how to do this? And I'm not saying emotional things. I'm like life things. Oh, you ran away from this last time. Remember? You fucking idiot. How did you think this was going to not come up again? And that, again, Swamp Jeff comes out and says all those things. But it's easy to believe because you literally didn't deal with the thing. It's not like you're dealing with some cognitive dissonance where you're like, no, but I did and I feel bad. It's like, nah, but I didn't. I didn't fucking deal with it. I don't know how to do that thing. Someone says, oh, can you play those chords on a guitar? You're like, yeah, no. And they're like, oh, I thought you knew how to play the guitar. And you're like, oh, that they're not saying you're shit and you should know how to play the guitar. They're saying, oh, I thought you knew. But you're hearing and you're feeling. You used to play the guitar, Jeff. You haven't played your guitar in fucking ages. You never practiced. You said you were going to.
And that's something that you want to do.
You haven't. It's something you want to do, but you haven't done it. You don't
do.
And guess what? You're a piece of shit for not doing it. And guess what? You can't currently do this. Maybe I can wait. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll just do something else.
It's a terrible cycle.
And you're like, oh, fuck.
That's a terrible cycle.
And that also fucks with your whole identity, because if you have any little part of you that thinks you're a guitarist, a car guy, a fucking pizza chef, anything, all of a sudden that little thing starts to fall apart a little bit, which fucks with your whole identity, which all of a sudden can just feed into it. A lot of things are happening all of a sudden. But it feeds into your whole identity as like, I'm not this thing. I'm not a music producer. I don't know what I'm doing at all. Why do I even have a fucking studio? This is a complete waste of my time. You know what? That new song sounds like shit. We should have started again. We need to remake everything. This sucks. That song, fucking hate it. Jono, you're shit. Get out of my way. I need everything. And it all starts when you start telling yourself negative things because of some not enoughness that you may have a kernel of truth somewhere, but is not is not the be all and end all. Like the thing about not knowing how to play guitar is a reminder that that's something you'd like to work on.
But why? Oh.
But it doesn't make you less of a person that you don't know that. It's like, clearly this is something you'd like to do, so either prioritize it or be okay with the fact you don't know how to do it. And it's because, would I be pissed if someone asked me a question about whales and I was like, fuck, I don't know the answer? I'd be like, I have no idea about that.
Because you don't want to learn about whales.
Exactly.
But you want to play your guitar more.
Yeah.
So why do you think, because this kind of comes back to the holding on to the anguish or the resentment part rather than actually doing the thing. Because you could, if someone said to you, do you know those chords on the guitar? And you go, fuck. And instead of being like, I'm a piece of shit, I can't produce music, why do I have a studio? Fuck you, Jono, we need to change this song. And that's the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't the outcome, I'm going to play my guitar for 10 minutes tonight?
Well, that's the thing.
Because because I do the same thing. I go into this self-loathing loop, which fucks things, rather than going, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes, or I'm going to do whatever the thing is that maybe I feel like I'm lacking.
So I would challenge that I might come to the end of this whole sequence and be like, I need to play my guitar 10 minutes tonight. I'm going to buy my tuner. I'm going to move it into my bedroom. Funnily enough, these are all things I've done. I haven't started playing my guitar more. But
I heard you play it last night, very briefly.
I literally bumped up against it. Oh, there you are. What I'm saying is I come to the end and I do those. I'm going to start playing my guitar for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But instead of taking the positive path that takes 30 seconds, I'm like, I'm going to start doing that. That's right. Be kind to yourself. You're doing it. You're doing so many other things, Jeff. Clearly, your guitar isn't top priority at the moment, but that's okay. It will become, it's something you're working on. I choose to run through the river of shit for an hour or maybe even longer in my head, unconsciously, but I still get to the same outcome. So why the fuck don't we cut out some of the pain and not go through that and instead just take the positive? Choose to take a step back and be like, I'm recognizing this as a moment where I might go down the fucking shit path. I'm actually going to go the better way. It's that, like...
Is that presence? Do you think that's
it's awareness behind your emotions.
Okay. And so how do you... Is it just practice and
I think
awareness and being aware of the separation between your thoughts and your emotions too, in that moment when someone goes, when you recognize I want to play the guitar more?
Yeah, because that's what you're recognizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. And to be honest, like, meditation helped me a shitload with this, not because I would be like, I'm getting furious, I'm going to take 10 minutes and calm down. The idea of sitting with your thoughts for 10 to 30 minutes really regularly teaches you a little bit how to navigate your brain and how to slow things down. And as I think it's either Sharon Salzberg or
Raghu Marcus,
maybe someone says the goal of meditation is not inner peace, it's to get a few more moments between the stimulus and your reaction. And I think that's something that's really done for me. So instead of rushing straight to the shit path, you can be like, this is one of those moments. And you go the positive path because you rise above it, because you're aware before you take the step rather than just falling off the fucking cliff. And that happens like in so many different things. I can seriously say meditation fucking helps because I can now catch myself in a conversation and be like, I could say that. I'm not going to. It's not helpful. It's not. Or it's going to take the conversation down this path, or like no, I'm just going to let this happen and let it be. Like, I'm going to listen, or even in like actions that I'm going to take, I'm like, that's actually the more positive outcome. Or like, you just get, it's almost like you get a little, you can press a button and pause the world for a quarter of a second while your brain catches up and goes, hey, Jeff, I think this is the nice way to do things, rather than like instantly reaction. Because our instant reactions, us yelling at the fucking guy that cuts us off, that we're not going to do anything about, that actually has no bearing on our existence other than the fact we're going to be pissed off for the next 5 minutes of that guy, is just like failure to deal with. It's like we're reacting like animals. And I have enough frustration in me that that's going to roll me up, rather than being like, I'm quite neutral and can choose the calmer way.
I do think that being in these heightened senses, heightened states, of like, I think a lot of people are maybe in somewhere close to fight or flight mode a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's because of maybe a bit jacked up on coffee, maybe you've got anxiety, maybe you've got these things.
High levels of cortisol, like however you get it, is just going to make you like more skittish, and
they know that your frontal lobe stops working when you're in those heightened states. So you're actually going to become a poorer performer.
Absolutely.
And a less astute or emotionally aware person. So if you're in a heightened state, if you're not feeling good and someone cuts you off, of course you respond with that anger or that frustration. And I think meditation does definitely lower. It raises the threshold. Yeah,
threshold.
I was trying to think of the compression metaphor, but yeah, it raises your threshold for things.
Yeah.
So when you are in a good practice, and really that's, I was going to say any practice, but especially meditation.
I think
through exercise or actual meditation.
I think if you can,
it helps so much.
Your world, I can safely say, my life changed when I started meditating.
But the funny thing is, it again, we've both been through great stages of like solid practice and then not solid practice. And I know that meditation and fucking exercise and doing these things regularly makes such a difference. I went for a run this morning and I was told myself the entire time, fuck this. This isn't helping, and fuck you. The entire time. I went to the gym on Wednesday, same thing.
That's a pretty powerful swamp monster you have.
Yeah, and being like, this isn't, why are you doing this? This isn't good. This isn't going to fix anything. And I pushed through it, and then afterwards, he shuts the fuck up, and higher self, John, is like, great work, buddy. You did it. How much better do you feel now? Hey, I've had this idea for this, and maybe you could do this, and I've suddenly got so much more room to be the Jono that I know I am, rather than this huddled up, unable to think, unable to respond, unable to have a good idea, unable to use my fucking brain, which I know is powerful, because I'm so intertwined with this swamp monster cunt. But still, there's that resistance.
But that's the swamp monster
again.
Before you even start, and sometimes, to continue with the swamp monster metaphor, he's the guy that stands there and goes, "Don't go, don't do it, don't do it." And you put on your shoes, and you're walking out the door, and he's like, "You fucking idiot! Why are you running? It's not going to be better." Then he hops on your back, but he's a little bit lighter because you've diminished him by running. Yeah. And he gets smaller as you run, and you're smaller. But his voice gets higher and higher, and he still calls you a fuckface, and he's doing all these things, and he's saying all this shit to you, and he's fucking. And he gets smaller and smaller. You have to run him away, not run away from him.
Yeah,
he's not going anywhere. You have to, and that won't help because he's going to come back and find you. But to diminish him and realize that he can be diminished, and that these things help. The term practice is used with meditation because it's not something you achieve. It's not a perfect game of any sort. It's like you didn't go like, I've done it. I've completed meditation. It's a practice, like a doctor's practice is a practice because they practice medicine. It's something they're always learning about, hopefully, and they're doing the best they can at the current stage. That's what they're doing. And it's like meditation where, damn it, I missed today. But realizing it's a practice is a get out of jail free card anyway. It's like, yeah, it's all right. You didn't do it today. It's cool. You get back on the horse tomorrow. The best thing you can do when you stop meditating is start again. The best thing you can remind yourself when you've had a bad day and you go, fuck, I should have fucking meditated today. Like, I'll meditate tomorrow. I will do it tomorrow. It's fine. The realization that you need to or you want to, and the awareness that you should have, should then lead to you doing it. But once again, the frustration will happen if that continues to build up and you don't and stuff. But then I would argue that maybe it's not enough of a priority. So therefore you may need to have some sort of a break, some sort of fucking episode that's going to kick you back into a better practice, because sometimes you have to have an epiphany to make a change. Everyone wants to make a snap decision, but I don't think they want it badly enough. Because if you really want something, you will do it.
Because it's fucking hard. It is hard to wake up every morning and meditate for 10 minutes.
No, that's not hard.
No, but the discipline to do it is hard. But people want it to be easy. I mean, I want it to be easy.
If you could take a pill to make you ripped and make you mindful, it would sell. It would be the wonder drug, and you could sell it for so much money. And all of that shit is free. But what it costs you is some time, discipline, and hard work. And that and being uncomfortable. And that temporary uncomfortableness.
And I think
which goes away, and soon you start to love the thing. It's like I remember not liking deadlifts when I went to the gym. I don't deadlift fucking mad weights or anything, but I remember being like, it's like not a very comfortable exercise. And then I started doing deadlifts and chin-ups at the same time. I'm like, chin-ups, I'd like to be able to do chin-ups, but they're hard because I am heavy and I'm trying to lift my own weight. And then as chin-ups got easier and deadlifts, I started getting into them. Now they're my favorite thing to do. If I have 20 minutes at the gym, I know I could do deadlifts, chin-ups, some sort of other exercise and just burn through them. And I'm like, I got a good fucking thing in. The thing you hate can often start to become the thing you love because you get good at it and you get that satisfaction of I am improving.
Do you remember when I didn't want to go to the gym when you started going to the gym? Maybe ages ago.
Well, no, it was a few years after I'd been going to the gym, but it was when Coops moved away.
Yeah.
And I was going to the gym by myself, and I was like, do you want to come with me?
I was like, no, I don't want to do it.
And you told yourself many stories, including the classic of I don't want to get held big, man. I don't like gyms.
Yeah.
All the classics.
But then when I thought about it recently, the happiest that I've been in the past few years was when I was in London and doing F45 every day.
Which is a fucking hard workout for anyone that hasn't done it.
And waking up in the morning early and going to do it. And that's something I found uncomfortable at the beginning. And I was like, there's fucking heaps of people here. I'm pretty shit at doing push-ups. And then it was I remember how good I felt the first, I think I only did it twice before the lockdown started and it all got shut down. Doing a 2 a day and doing one in the morning and then one that night. And I remember telling Michael, being the next day, being really proud and being man, I did two workouts yesterday. I was like, fuck yeah, that's sick. The next step is to now fucking become an Adonis like him or then, you know, I'd progressed. I felt comfortable, and like I could offer some assistance to someone if they were like doing a weird movement, or if I went with Nick or Seb, I could be like, oh, I'd like do it this way. It might be a bit easier. Like I had some knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's when I felt good.
And it's part of that is the community, and part of that is the achievement.
Yeah.
And like the other thing is that you did it, like you overcame.
Yeah.
Remember that day? I remember it distinctly. We were going, when we first started going to that F45, when Mike said you can come, and we went a few days, and there was one day where I was like, if we want to go to the class, the one he said we can go to is the 7:15 one or something.
Yeah.
And we were leaving that day, or had something else on that day. We both wanted to do exercise, and we'd had some beers the night before, and we woke up at like...
We had basically less than 10 minutes together.
We had 20 minutes together. It was fuck all. And like, we went, you go, do you want to go? And I was like, yep, I'm going. And all I did was like, went to put on my shoes, and you were like, all right, let's fucking do it. And then we ran there, didn't catch the train. We ran, and we like arrived there just in time. We walked in, we smashed it. And then and it's like we got into the flow. Like there was no time to think, we're not going to do this. Maybe if we stop. It was just, we just hit it. And then when we finished, we got a coffee, and we were like, whoa, it's 10 past 8, and we caught the train back. And we're like, whoa, we've done so much. We've overcome. But it would have been so easy just to say no.
There was one day where there was a Saturday. So on Saturday, there's something called Hollywood. And Hollywood is 30 stations.
I think I did one of them.
A minute at each station.
Man, that's so crazy.
Twice through. I think it's that. 30 stations or 28 stations or something. It's fucking hard. And the night before, I'm pretty sure I'd gone to film Tom Metric at Ministry of Sound. I got home at 4, and I was pretty drunk. And I had to be there at 8 for work. And I went to work, and I was hungover. I got a coffee and was like, this is fucking hard. And there's like 3 or 4 Hollywood classes. And usually the person working, you'd attend the last class. And I can't remember. Yeah, probably Mike was working. He was like, are you going to do the last class? I'm like, pretty fucking hungover. This is when I was in a pretty good practice though. And he was like, just do it. So I did it. And afterwards, I felt fucking way better. But doing an hour of hard exercise when you've had 4 hours sleep and probably pretty still drunk for the first part of my shift, like the way you feel after that, you're like, I can fucking do anything.
Yeah.
This is great.
It's that David Goggins thing where he says most people quit at 40% effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the maximum. People think their 100 is actually 40% of their effort.
And when you get used to doing, it's like when you kind of know your limits more, you know when to push more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also know when to, to bring it back to the mental health thing, is like know when to give yourself a break and be like, I've done enough. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a moment, and I'm not going to beat myself up because I've done good work. I remind myself constantly, especially for the last 3 weeks, as we've worked really hard on this remix, as we've worked really hard on Reunited, I remind myself nightly, it's like, you've done enough. This is good stuff.
I don't do that.
We're doing this in the service of this amazing opportunity, this amazing thing we've achieved. And like, that's the goal. And understanding that that's the greater goal is really important, because if I came home every night and said, fuck, I'm so tired, that was crazy. Like, there's no point in doing this. I don't know what's happening. Like, this is whatever. It's very easy to talk myself out of achieving anything. But the constant reminder that I'm like, it's that little voice in my head that I've improved significantly over the last 18 months that says, keep going. It's all good. Swamp Jeff's still there, but he's a lot quieter. He kind of looks at me and goes, yeah, I don't think you can. And then me and higher self Jeff look at him and be like, you don't think we can, but I know we can. So let's fucking get on with it. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. And I'm definitely going to need some of your advice later, Swamp Jono, which is the fear inside of us that says, oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, you shouldn't do that. Because we require some of that guidance.
But I feel like when you listen to your higher self enough, your higher self actually just comes in with that, like...
Yeah, probably, actually.
With good advice. That's what good advice is. And that's advice not motivated by fear, but motivated by... Love and motivated by actual smart decision.
Mm.
I think in Big Mouth, spoiler alert for the last season of Big Mouth, but...
It's a TV show on Netflix for anyone that hasn't tuned in.
You should go watch it if you haven't watched it. It's fucking one of the best TV shows, animated shows
funny.
that's been made in the past few years. And Nick, one of the characters, has lost the true sense of himself.
Yeah.
And he goes to find his true self, and he's scared, and he's acting out of he's acting out of fear. And he comes back and he kind of goes back to his normal self, and then they all realize that what's the anxiety mosquito's name? Tito the mosquito,
yeah.
The anxiety mosquito and the depression kitty are actually really small. So they've gone from being these big kind of monsters, and they're just like, oh, they're kind of cute.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hormone monstrous says they'll always be around, but it's about keeping them at bay with the grace toad. No, the gratitude.
The gratitude.
The gratitoad.
The gratitoad.
So
that's right.
You can't be anxious and fearful when you're grateful. And that's how you minimize the anxiety or minimize the depression kitty.
Mm. So you can't fall asleep in a car if you're yelling.
No.
So that's why you can talk to yourself or just keep singing really loudly and you won't fall asleep. And if you're grateful.
I think part of the process of separating yourself from your own swamp monster is loving the swamp monster to some extent and knowing that's part of yourself.
Totally.
I think becoming aware of not being annoyed that the swamp monster exists, but there is function to the swamp monster.
Absolutely.
You just don't want to be attached to him, or you don't want to spend too much time in the swamp. But it's good to view from afar, or go over and visit every now and then.
That's a lovely way to finish the podcast, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing with me your vulnerabilities and talking about this stuff, because it's important and it helps, I think, to talk about. I feel better having talked about it. I feel better not only having laid on the Shakti mat and meditated for 10 minutes, but also having had this conversation. I feel better, and I feel in a better place to create now. And do you?
I feel a lot better.
Yeah, and that's great, because when this podcast started, I was like a little bit like, frustrated at the fact we had to do a podcast because it was a thing to do. But actually now this is like therapeutic, and it's the benefit of it far outweighs any like time spent on it or anything. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for having this conversation with me, because I do believe they're important, and I can agree about the therapeutic nature of them, because I do feel a lot better now, and I feel a little bit more as weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and I feel more primed to achieve some of the changes that I'm going to implement into my life. One of them being daily meditation. Maybe next week we can report back on how my meditation is going and how your guitar playing is going.
P.S. listener, anyone that's asked about us not having phones in the studio, that didn't last shit. So hopefully our practice can be better. But that's okay.
But that is okay.
It's okay. It's a practice.
It's a practice. And maybe Yeah. Yeah, that's practice.
And also maybe it doesn't. It's not so diminishing. Anyway, I don't know. But buddy, let's hit this and let's complete the task because we're very, very close to finishing our tightrope walk of achieving some big things.
We are, and we've got June's going to be a big month.
Big month.
We've got tour announcements, single, remix,
shows,
guest stars,
celebrity guests.
Lots of stuff coming up, guys and girls. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. We'll be back next week.
I love
As
you, buddy.
Always. I love you too, buddy. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on your podcast app and keep up to date with all new episodes. They're going to be coming out once a week. We are Ekko and Sidetrack on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are Ekko Sidetrack. Go listen to our music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, or wherever your ears consume happiness. Lots of love, people.